Why do we die? 10 surprising facts about death. If you don't want to hear about death, consider this article an unwelcome reminder. For centuries, various cultures have attributed human traits to death to make it more understandable. Modern science has lifted the veil of mystery surrounding death by studying numerous biological processes, but many questions remain unanswered. The science of death is not just a painful reminder of the cruelty of fate, but a way to improve the lives of those left behind. The black cloak, the grinning skull, and the bony figure with the scythe are classic images of death in Western culture, but they are not the only ones. Ancient societies personified death in different ways. The Greeks had the winged Thanatos, who cut a lock of hair, freeing the soul from the body. The Scandinavians had the reclusive hell, dark and solitary, and the Hindus had the god of death, Yama, in bright garments. Modern science has made death less mysterious by exposing the complex biological and physical processes that separate the living from the dead. However, thanks to these discoveries, death has come to be perceived as something more alien. Consciousness persists even after death. Many of us imagine death as something akin to sleep. The head becomes heavy, the eyelids tremble, and slowly close. The last breath hand, everything shuts down. It sounds even pleasant, but alas, it is too good to be true. Dr. Samparnia, the director of the Resuscitation Research Program at NYU Langone Medical Center, has long studied death. He concluded that consciousness persists for some time after death. The cerebral cortex, responsible for thinking, continues to emit waves for about 20 seconds after death. Research on laboratory rats has shown an increase in brain activity immediately after death, leading to an excited and hyper-alert state. If such states are observed in humans as well, it confirms that the brain remains conscious in the early stages of death. This also explains why people who have experienced clinical death sometimes remember what happened, even though they were technically dead. But why study the experience of death at all if there is no way back? Just as researchers study the nature of love and the feelings associated with it, we are trying to understand what people experience at the moment of death. We believe these experiences are relevant to everyone, Parnia said in an interview with Live Science. Zombies do exist, or almost. Recently, Yale School of Medicine received 32 pig brains from a local slaughterhouse. The scientists intended to physiologically resurrect them. They connected the brains to a perfusion system called BrainX. A solution of artificial blood, rich in oxygen and nutrients, flowed through the inactive tissues. The brains not only came back to life, but some of their cells functioned for another 36 hours. They were metabolizing sugar. Even the immune system kicked in. Some cells began transmitting electrical signals. Since the scientists were not planning to film Animal Farm, the story by George Orwell, they added chemicals to the solution that suppressed neuronal activity, meaning consciousness. Their real goal was to develop technology that would help study the brain and its cellular functions more thoroughly and for longer periods. This, in turn, would improve treatment methods for brain injuries and neurodegenerative diseases. For some body parts, death is not the end. Life after death exists. No, science has not found evidence of an afterlife, but our genes continue to live even after our death. In a study published in Open Biology, researchers examined gene expression in dead mice and zebrafish. The results surprised them. More than 1,000 genes were activated after death, and in some cases, this process lasted up to 4 days. We did not expect this, admitted Peter Noble, the study's author and a professor of microbiology at the University of Washington, to Newsweek. Imagine you take a sample 24 hours after death, and the number of transcripts increases. That is truly unexpected. The activity related to stress and the immune system, as well as genes responsible for development. This suggests that the body shuts down gradually, meaning vertebrate organisms die slowly rather than all at once. Energy remains even after death, but even our genes will eventually disappear, and we ourselves will turn to dust. However, according to the first law of thermodynamics, The energy that fuels life is conserved and cannot be destroyed. It simply reincarnates. As physicist Aaron Freeman explained in his Physics Funeral, let a physicist remind your grieving mother of the first law of thermodynamics, that energy in the universe is neither created nor destroyed. Let your mother know that all your energy, every vibration of it, every British thermal unit of heat, every wave of every particle, everything that was once her beloved child will remain with her in this world. Perhaps clinical death is merely a vision of extraordinary power. The experience of clinical death can vary. Some say they leave their bodies. Others venture into some otherworldly realm where they meet deceased relatives. Some find themselves in the classic scenario of a light at the end of the tunnel. As suggested by a study published in Neurology, clinical death is a state on the border between wakefulness and sleep. Scientists compared those who experience clinical death with ordinary people and found that they more often entered a state of paradoxical sleep, where sleep seems to intrude upon waking consciousness. Animals mourn the dead too. Expedition participants have seen elephants stop to say goodbye to the dead even if the deceased was from another herd. Even dolphins say goodbye to deceased companions, and chimpanzees form entire rituals around the dead, such as grooming. Although no burial rituals, similar to human ones, have been observed in the wild, this requires abstract thinking. Sick behavior still indicates that animals are aware of death and react to it. Who invented burying the dead? In studying various cultures, anthropologist Donald Brown discovered hundreds of common traits. Each culture, however, has its own way of honoring and mourning the dead. Fossil remains of Homo naledi were found in the Rising Star Cave in South Africa. Researchers ruled out the possibility of a collapse or other natural disaster. It seemed to be intentional, and scientists concluded that the cave served as a burial site for Homo naledi. Living corpses. For most of us, the line between life and death is clear. However, people with Cotard's syndrome do not see this difference. This rare mental disorder was described by Dr. Jules Cotard in 1882. Patients claim that they have been dead for a long time, that they are missing body parts, or that they have lost their soul. One 53-year-old Filipina claimed that she smelled like rotten fish and demanded to be taken to the morgue. To her people, fortunately, a combination of antipsychotics and antidepressants helped her. This severe mental disorder can be treated with the right medications. Is it true that hair and nails continue to grow after death? This is not true. After death, hair and nails cannot grow because the formation of new cells ceases. Water also stops flowing, leading to dehydration of the body. When the skin of the corpse dries out, it pulls away from the nails, making them appear longer. Interestingly, this myth has spawned tales of vampires and other nocturnal creatures. When our ancestors dug up fresh corpses and found stubble and blood spots around the mouth, the result of natural blood pooling, they certainly imagined the worst. Why do we die? People who live to be 110 years old are called supercentenarians. Those who reach 120 years are even rarer. The oldest woman in history remains Jean Comments lived to be 122 years old. But why do we die at all? The simplest answer is that nature itself disposes of us after a certain time. From an evolutionary perspective, the purpose of life is to pass on one's genes to offspring. However, human life significantly exceeds reproductive age. This allows us to spend time and energy raising grandchildren who also carry our genes. This phenomenon is sometimes referred to as the grandmother effect. But evolution is not designed for more than that. Nerve cells do not regenerate, the brain shrinks, the heart weakens, and we die. Sooner or later, our children will become grandparents themselves, and our genes will pass on to the next generations. Death isn't just the end, energy remains, and even animals mourn. While many questions remain, our impact lasts beyond life. If you enjoyed this video, like, subscribe, and share your thoughts below. Stay curious.